Welcome to Stories for Wonderful Children. I'm Dan Wendelin, your host and storyteller. For many years, I improvised a new bedtime story for my children every night. Now, with their permission, I'm sharing the recordings of the best of those stories with you. Right now, we're about halfway through a long story that I told during the pandemic lockdown of 2020 about a girl who attends an online school for adventuring named Myra. I hope that you enjoy it as much as we did. As they stepped from the forest into the clear, grassy fields of campus, Myra breathed a sigh. It was not so much a sigh of relief as just a sigh of accomplishment. She did not, unfortunately, feel like the return to campus really made her safe. It just meant that she needed to be watchful in a different way. She checked in her pocket to make sure the shears were in place. She looked around at her little group. "Well," she said, "I'll see you all for dinner." Tweety had immediately started walking off. "Where are you headed, Tweety?" Myra asked, jogging to catch up. "Cafeteria," Tweety said. "I need to talk cook into giving me a tray of cinnamon rolls. I owe the wargs a debt." "Yeah, we do." "Yeah," said Myra. "Oh, that's right, she does, doesn't she? Why does she owe Cook dishwashing?"
Because of the sneaker test.
Oh, yeah. Cook found her and she promised that she would do dishes as soon as she got back.
That's right. Myra and Tweety headed to the cafeteria, and they walked around to the back door that led directly into the kitchen. Tweety knocked, and after a moment, the door was yanked open, and Cook glared out at them. "Oh," she said, "you're back. Good. I just finished baking, and there's a lot of dishes. Get in here, Myra." Myra looked over at Tweety. "Oh," she said. "What do you want?" said Cook, glaring at Tweety. "You want to help wash dishes too?" "Actually," said Tweety, "I'm here to ask if I could have a tray of your cinnamon rolls." "A tray?" said Cook. "Hungry, are we?" "No," said Tweety. "I mean, yes, but they're not for me. At least not all of them are for me. I might eat one of them." "Why?" said Cook. "You don't even need to eat." "Well," said Tweety, "they taste good?" "That," said Cook, "is the right answer. Now, explain to me why you need a tray of them." Cook glanced over at Myra. "You aren't washing yet." Myra busied herself at the sink. "Now then," said Cook, "why do you need a tray of cinnamon rolls?" "Well," said Tweety, "you see, I owe a favor to some wargs." "Wargs, you say?" said Cook. "What business do you have mucking around making deals with wargs, especially about my cinnamon rolls?" "Well," said Tweety, it's a really long story. I don't suppose you'd just be willing to trust me that I need them?" "That," said Cook, "would be correct. If it's a really long story, I should like to hear it." Tweety sighed. "Okay," said Tweety, "we were going in the forest to get something, and on the way back we were being chased by a string demon, and then we were ambushed by wargs, and I had to convince them that there was a reason to let us live and to get back to campus, and so I know that this is highly unconventional." And as Tweety said that, the door to the kitchen swung open, and the administrator was standing there. He said, "What is highly unconventional? I love a good story." Myra sucked in her breath and then slipped her hand into her pocket and grasped the shears, trying to think quickly. "Well," said Tweety, you told us that we were all allowed to go into the forest, and so I've made friends with some wargs and promised them some cinnamon rolls. Well, of course I told you could go into the forest, said the administrator. I just didn't expect you to, to explore so widely away from the campus. You should be careful. Oh, we're very careful, said Tweety.
Flashbacks to them almost dying by the string demon.
Myra leaned over the water full of dishes and plunged her hands into the hot water. The administrator walked over to her. Having the students do the dishes now, Cook. Cook just glared at him. How can I help you, administrator? She said. Oh, just doing my rounds. Your rounds don't usually include my kitchen. No, said the administrator. He walked right up to Myra and looked her over very carefully, head to toe. Myra pulled her hands out of the water, and dripping with soap from her fingers, she said, May I help you, administrator? He finished looking her over and frowned slightly, apparently having not found whatever it was he was looking for. Yes, he said, but I'll wait outside. Clearly Cook has tasks for you to finish. We can have a chat in a few minutes. Okay, said Myra. As soon as the administrator left, Cook looked at Tweety. You can have the cinnamon rolls, she said. She pulled out the tray and handed them to Tweety. Tweety took the tray and walked over to Myra. Well, Myra, what'd you do with them? Myra reached down into the soapy water and pulled out the dripping shears. She glanced around and said, I don't think I should have these with me when I meet with the administrator. And she took them and put them into Tweety's hand. Tweety grasped them in Tweety's palm and then put the tray over the top. Well, said Tweety, I'm off to feed some wargs. And Tweety headed out the door. Myra finished up her dishwashing, pondering, saying something to Cook, who seemed to know a lot about the forest, or asking Cook if she knew anything about the shears, but decided that perhaps the best thing to do at this particular moment was to finish up the dishes and go see what it was that the administrator had to say. She headed out, and he was waiting just outside the kitchen door for her. Myra noticed that a spot in front of him, somewhat disguised in the grass if you weren't looking carefully, was a circle of faintly glowing green gems. He had stood in such a way that in order to come talk to him, she would have to stand in that circle. She had noticed them. She walked forward. Yes, administrator, she said. Because she had seen the gems, she caught his glance down at the gems at her feet and his slight frown. Well, he said, I just wanted to let you know, since while you were gone in the forest you might have missed the announcement, that Family Day is the day after tomorrow, and I've received notice that your parents will be coming for Family Day to visit you and your sister. Oh, said Myra, well, that's very nice. I'm looking forward to seeing them. But, you didn't have to come tell me this yourself. I'm sure you must be very busy, sir. He shrugged. Oh, it was no trouble, he said. I always like to take good care of my students. Well, said Myra, I'm a little tired after all my hiking. I hope you'll excuse me? Absolutely, said the administrator. You have a good afternoon. Myra walked off around the corner and then slipped back to the corner and held the little mirror that she carried so that she could just peek. She saw the administrator pick up the gems out of the grass, hold them in his hand, and blow on them. Then he shook his head, returned them to a pocket in the folds of his robe, and walked back off towards the administration building. Myra wondered what the gems were. She wondered what might have been different if she had still had the shears with her when she had stepped inside them. But she had no way of knowing, and so she simply hoped that when she got back to her room, she would soon be seeing Tweety with the shears in hand. And that is the story for tonight. Thanks for listening to Stories for Wonderful Children. I created today's show, but questions and commentary were supplied by my children. The theme music was written by Brandon Thompson, and our wonderful logo was designed by Silas Wendelin. If you're enjoying the show, please tell someone about it, and leave a review with your podcast provider. You can now subscribe to the show to get extra stories and longer chapters of Myra and the Online School that combine multiple segments into a longer episode. The show's website is storiesforwonderfulchildren.buzzsprout.com. Until next time, I'm Dan Wendelin, reminding you to tell someone you love a story.